What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Guardians of the Future. I'm your host, Justin Latta. Thank you all, prospect fans and Guardians fans, for being super patient. I know I have not delivered this podcast as often as I would like this season. Again, hosting a full-time podcast 5 days a week. Check it out. Lifetime Guardians. It's a lot of work, and the Guardians are good, and the draft was busy, and the farm system has had a great second half for a lot of reasons. So there's been a lot to cover. Unfortunately, I just don't always have time to jump on here. And I've tried to get some interviews as well. As I've talked about a couple weeks ago, we had Jason Trill on from Lynchburg. He's been fantastic for us all year. Been trying to get something scheduled with Marco Lanave from Akron, but unfortunately our schedules are a little bit opposite right now, so I'm trying to make that work. I don't really have anybody in Columbus anymore, so who knows? We'll talk Lake County again later in the year. So this week, just a solo episode for me. We got a lot to get to. A lot of good news, a lot of top prospects, a lot of draft stuff. I got an interview at the end of this podcast with Matt Wilkinson, a.k.a. Tugboat, that people have been waiting to hear, I know. I've been promising for a while. I've got that. So stick around for that at the end with Tugboat last month in Lake County. Great kid. Really smart, really humble, really confident, though. Confidently humble is the best way I can really describe Tugboat. If that makes sense. He seemed like a great kid, got his feet under him, and is having a fantastic season, rightfully so. And it's just a very, very unique skill set and player profile that we'll get into a little bit. Again, I just want to say thanks for any diehard Guardians prospect listeners who have been listening to this podcast for a long time, or if you're somewhat new here, if you are 100% new here, tell a friend. This used to be a more weekly podcast. I used to have co-hosts. I don't really have consistent co-hosts anymore, unfortunately. But what this podcast is, if you're sort of new here, it's really just a smorgasbord of Guardians prospect news from the minors all the way to AAA, the draft. Just covers, players who are doing well, players I've seen, things I've heard from covering games, things I've been watching, general thoughts, stuff I don't have time to get to on Locked On Guardians. And we've got a ton to get into today. So why don't we kick this episode off with Chase DeLauter going to AAA on Tuesday. Great news for the Guardians and Guardians fans alike. Hard to believe Chase DeLauter has played only 36 games at the AAA level, 30 this season, 6 a year ago. He's only played 33 games all of 2024 because he's had multiple foot injuries. Those keep impacting throughout the year. But the one thing you could say about Chase DeLauter, his best ability has not been availability, but when he's on the field, the rest of the abilities are there. He homered in 3 straight games coming back from the foot injury, or at least over the weekend, he homered in 3 straight games played. Didn't play in every game, but the 3 games he played, he homered in. He drew 2 walks against Jackson Jobe on Sunday. 1 walk against Jackson Jobe, the Tigers' top pitching prospect, and he also homered off him. So, hey, good way to go out in AA. It seemed like it was about time for him. It just really makes you wonder, had he been healthy all year, would he have already put himself in position to make it to the majors? And, he had a great spring training. Spring training does not mean a lot. There was never a chance he was making the team out of spring training. People needed to get that out of their minds to begin with. But he had a great spring training. The team loves him. And obviously there's a reason they selected him. He doesn't strike out. He draws walks. He's got power. I don't think he's a center fielder long term, but I don't think that really matters, because really what matters with Chase DeLauter is the bat. And if he's healthy, and if he can hit lefties, that's still the other question there too. But you have to wonder, if he played all year, if he'd been healthy most of the year, would he have already forced his way to the major leagues? He's going to be in AAA for the rest of the year. Is there an outside chance he can make his way to the majors? I think what stinks to think about in terms of could he make it to the majors is if somehow Chase DeLauter forces his way to the major leagues in 2024, which I think is still unlikely, but I'm not going to say as a complete impossibility, because I didn't think after 33 games this season he'd go to AAA. But that means a lot of bad things happen in front of him too. So I'm not saying you shouldn't get excited. It's going to be great to see him go to Columbus. There were a lot of people out there who doubted, he doesn't need to go to AAA. He can just skip AA. That never happens. I think Juan Soto skipped AA, and Chase DeLauter, I think, is a good hitter. He's not Juan Soto. Let's just be honest about that. But there's plenty of good pitching prospects for him to face in AAA too. Someone asked me the question of that on Twitter, not necessarily for the podcast, so I'm going to use it here. So there's this argument that you're not going to find the pitching at AAA is the same as in AA. Now, are there Jackson Jobs at AAA? Probably not, but Jackson Jobs still got some things to work on himself. Probably not likely a September call up this year for the Tigers. He's been hurt this season. So there's still prospects in the face of AAA. Let's start with this week. So unfortunately, Braxton Ashcraft, who is one of the top pitching prospects for the Pirates in AAA, he's out, so he's not going to face him. They're facing Indianapolis, by the way, which is the Pirates AAA team. But Bubba Chandler, the 2021 first rounder from the Pirates, he's in AAA now. Thomas Harrington, who I really liked in that draft too, I believe he's out of Campbell. He is in AAA. He should pitch this week against DeLauter and the Clippers. There's Mike Burrows, who has been hurt a lot of the year, and I think he's got great stuff. He might be a reliever, but that's still a quality pitcher right there. So DeLauter is going to see probably at least two good pitchers this week in Columbus, or for Columbus. That should be a good one. And then next week, Columbus plays Gwinnett, which is the Braves AAA franchise. They've got A.J. Smith-Shawver, who's been a good prospect for them. Hurston Waldrop, who was also a top pick in that draft. Dylan Dodd, who has been good for them at the major league level this year, who's a bit of a pitching prospect. And then they've got Ian Anderson, who at one time was the Braves ace for at least for a year. He has been hurt and ineffective. He's trying to work his way back and find what makes him good again and change a lot of things. He had a good start last time out, I believe. So he's there, and he's a guy who's in major league success. And that's the difference between AAA and AA. Is a lot of people are saying, well, you can just skip AAA. It's not a big deal. The reason guys go to AAA right now, there is a huge gap between the majors and AAA. Huge gap. That's why you're seeing most of these guys a lot of times get to major leagues and they're struggling right off the bat. Jackson Holiday. Kyle Manzardo. I know he's not Jackson Holiday, but you see a lot of guys get to the major leagues and they struggle because there's a gap between AAA and the majors. Because the idea used to be, well, AAA is just a holding pen and it's for depth guys and yada, yada, yada. And really the idea is maybe the difference between AA and AAA isn't that great. The difference between the major leagues and AAA still is very great. So that alone is reason enough to go to AAA in the first place, because it's very hard to make that jump from AA to the majors when the jump from AAA to the majors is so big right now. And AAA still is a holding pen for a lot of. There are some prospects, depth guys. You got your Joey Cantillos, right? Your Ryan Webbs, your Will Dion's, your Connor Gillespie's. Zach Plesac was in AAA. You have all different types of AAA. But the idea is you have guys that have at least had major league success, have gotten major league hitters out. They've pitched in the major leagues before. Some of them have stuck there and have fallen backwards a little bit. Some of them have made their debuts, like Hurston Waldrop and A.J. Smith-Shawver and Dylan Dodd, and they're in AAA, so they're still quality guys too. Now you're not going to face, the Garrett Coles, the Joe Ryans, the even Seth Lugo or Tariq Skubals. You're not going to face those guys at AAA. No, for the most part, you're not. But there's still some significance in trying to see how teams pitch you at that level, facing guys who have had success in major league level, to make that jump. It's kind of, again, it's why the levels exist. There's a rung on the ladder to go to. And I think that level still has significance, even though you're not going to face who you're going to face the major league level. And he's got to be healthy and he's got to go there. Like, look at Andrew Walters, right? We all thought for sure Andrew Walters was going to jump to the majors right away. And he got to AAA and he hit a hiccup. A lot of Guardians pitchers have hit hiccups at AAA. Logan Allen did. I'm trying to think who else. There's just been other pitchers who hit the AAA. They dominate AA, and Andrew Walters is next in that line, and he struggled at AAA. Now, he's turned things around, but that just shows you things are different at AAA. The ball is different for whatever reason, and this is the dumbest thing in baseball. One of the dumbest things. They don't use the same baseballs throughout every level. I do not understand that one bit. I know one's ever given me a good answer. I've asked. Nobody really has a great answer. I don't get it. But the ball is different. The seams are different. And you've also got the automated strike zone, too, the ABS challenge, which now the ABS challenge exists every game. Used to be they were starting in AAA this year with 2 days a week, 2 days per series. they would use the ABS challenge system where hitters, pitchers, and catchers could challenge a ball or a strike call. Now it's all 6 games, but you're limited to 2 per game. Now, granted, if you get those right, you continue to hold on to those challenges, just like, challenge the major league level of any call. So he's going to have to get used to that strike zone too, because we're seeing the umpires at AAA are starting to get used to the calls there. So they're expected to mimic the strike zone that is coming through ABS. So they're learning what the ABS calls a strike and a ball, and they're taking that into their everyday ball and strike calls, their strike zones. And that's probably going to be different than what Chase DeLauter has seen at the AA level, because those umpires aren't getting that training. And just like prospects too, umpires are also prospects. They are trying to get better. I know people don't love umpires, and I don't know, we're not really talking about umpires in the show, but umpires are also moving up levels, learning and trying to get better as well. So in theory, everything works in theory. I like to say, there's a saying out there. I don't know who came up with that saying, but everything works in theory. So you would assume the umpiring at AAA is better, but at least the home plate umpire has the benefit of learning from the ABS challenge system. That will be new for DeLauter. He'll learn when to challenge, but he'll also learn that things in AA that maybe were a strike or were a ball are not the same in AAA. That's an adjustment. I know Walters has had to go through that as well. I don't know, maybe a different baseball doesn't impact Chase DeLauter the way it does Andrew Walters because he's not throwing it. But maybe it'll do different things. I think immediately there's a good chance DeLauter hits a ton of bombs in AAA because of the hitter-friendly ballpark in Columbus, and people get excited about that, which is fine. But he's going to face the best pitching he's faced so far, and I'm not saying he's not going to exceed or not, but it's still a valuable level. I wouldn't jump to the fact that he's going to make the majors this year. He should skip. The idea I'm trying to portray is here should not be skipping AA. That's not a thing. Just it doesn't happen as much anymore. But it's a great sign that he is in AAA. That means at the very least he is on the precipice of being a guy that can help them next year. I know there's still time to go this year at the major league level, and we're hoping for a division title and more guys coming up. But potentially next year, you have a chance to add Chase DeLauter and Travis Bazzana to that lineup in the major league level at some point next year. I'm not saying in April, but at some point. It's 2 spots in the lineup that are immediately going to be better than they are right now, no matter whose spot at bats they're taking. Those, if you're bringing those guys up, I guess I shouldn't say guaranteed because we've seen them bring other guys up and they've struggled too. So I shouldn't say that. But those are 2 spots those guys could fill that have the potential to be impact players very quickly. There is an adjustment period, but those are 2 spots in the lineup you feel really excited about going forward. And I know everyone was like, oh, we were excited about Rocchio. We were excited about Arias. I was excited about Will Brennan, and Will Brennan's hit better lately, so that's good. We were excited about George Valera, who hasn't been up yet, which we'll probably get into in a little bit here on the show. So I don't want to sit there and say it's a guarantee these guys come up next year and they light the world on fire. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But Travis Bazzana was the first overall pick for a reason, and before he got hurt, Chase DeLauter was in the conversation for the top pick, which is a lot of the reason why the Guardians ended up drafting him. So at the very least, it's exciting. It's good to look forward to. The first time Chase DeLauter plays over 100 and 100, I think over 100 games. I don't think he's ever played 100 games in a season. So we're still waiting for that, but we'll see on the injury front. But he's playing great, and the minor league numbers suggest he can hit. So it's all good news on that one right now. Let's get into Travis Bazzana a little bit and some draft thoughts and debuts. I promise you guys who are listeners of the show some draft thoughts a long time ago, and I haven't really gotten there again because schedules are busy and haven't had a lot of partners to do this with, but I'm just going to do it alone. Anybody who was worried about Travis Bazzana, I don't know what to tell you. He was going to come around eventually, right? We had one of my favorite guys in the industry, Jeff Ponts from Baseball America. If you're not familiar, we had him on Locked On Guardians 3 times this year. We had him on last week. Make sure you go listen to that if you haven't. I can't imagine you're listening to me now and don't listen to that. But if you haven't, there is that podcast out there with Jeff. And he was saying Bazzana went through a stretch like that at the start of the Cape Cod League season in 2023. It was like a first week or first couple games, first handful of games where he kind of struggled and was taking pitches and was striking out a little bit. And then he just took off. He settled in and he took off. And that's kind of what's happening here for Bazzana, right? He came in, he had, he had a couple of hits, he had the grand slam. It was really exciting. And then, he took some pitches, had some strikeouts, had some issues with stuff in the zone. And it was like, oh God, everyone was concerned. And I was like, this is too soon. And, it was like 8 games. Everyone was kind of panicking. I don't know why we're panicking over 8 games. I don't think anybody listening to this was panicking, because I think if you're listening to this podcast, you know prospects and you know how this stuff works and you know how small sample sizes works. The thing I was encouraged by was Bazzana was not swinging and missing a ton. It was a 8.7%. It is an 8.7% swinging strike rate right now. That is coupled with a 30% strikeout rate. And the reason the strikeout rate is so high is because he is passive. I'm going to be honest. There definitely is some passivity to his game. He is very much the kind of hitter who will not swing at a pitch if he doesn't think he can do damage. Now, with 2 strikes, that changes. With 2 strikes, you can't necessarily be thinking only swing at a pitch I'm going to do damage on. And that's where he's led to some of his swinging strikeouts. He's not expanding his zone though. Like, I don't know that I've seen Travis swing at a pitch yet out of the zone. Like, if he has, it's been very like 1 or 2, and it's been very close to being in the zone anyway. Like, there just aren't any pitches that he has offered out where I'm like, wow, what a bad swing, or wow, I can't believe he swung at that one. Like, he swung and missed some fastballs in the zone. He has swung and missed at a breaking ball in the zone, I've seen. But I haven't seen him swing at a pitch in the dirt, inside, outside, high. There's been a couple of high ones he's chased. They were close. That's probably the one I think you noticed the most. Is there's been some high fastballs, but they were on 2 strike counts. So he changes a little bit. But pre-2 strikes, this guy is either looking to do damage or he's not swinging. He's really good at pitch ID, I think. I think he understands pitch recognition, picks up spin. I think for him, it was just getting his feet under him, learning what pitchers were trying to do. Because, you get scouting reports in the minors, but you really don't, because every pitcher, you're going to face a lot of different pitchers in the 6-game series. That a lot of the hitters and the pitchers and then the teams don't love the format. It's good for travel, but it's not great for development. But you face a lot of pitchers who might be told, I know Kyle Body, who, Ohio native Kyle Body, who founded Driveline, was with the Reds a couple of years ago in their minor league system as a pitching coordinator, whatever. And there were guys I know he said on Twitter, they were telling, you're not throwing a fastball in fastball count. So you're not throwing, if you're in a 2 strike count, you're throwing something different. I remember a couple of years ago when Tanner Burns was in Lake County, he was one night just not throwing. He was throwing off-speed pitches when he was behind in the count. There was a direct developmental practice he was working on. So guys might be going out there trying, they want to get hitters out, they want to succeed, they want results, but they're also working on throwing breaking pitches in the zone. They're working on sequencing. So, Travis is coming from college where, hey, guys are throwing their best stuff. They're trying to get outs. They're trying to get results, right? And right now, seeing an 0-2 fastball down the middle, you're like, wow, I can't believe he threw an 0-2 fastball. But that might have been not something the pitcher wanted to do, or it was not maybe his best pitch, but it was something he was working on that day, and it crossed him up. Happens all the time. So you would think, guys are just throwing their best stuff. They're trying to get hitters out. And in the minor leagues, especially at high A, pitchers are working on a lot of different things. They are not necessarily going out there. Yes, they're trying to get outs, but they're also trying to work on development. If the team is smart, they're doing that. So that's something Travis said all prospects have to get used to, especially hitters. Just seeing different pitches and counts you're not used to. So a scouting report may look one way, but a pitcher's working on something that night, and it's very different. But anyway, he's got some doubles recently, and he's running the base as well. He's still drawing walks because, again, the guy really understands the strike zone, and we'll let umpires too. Gotta be honest, Midwest League umpires, I hope none of them are listening, or if you are, just do better. I said umpires are learning too as they move up levels. I know when we had Jason Pearl on the podcast a few weeks ago, he was saying about how he got a letter from an umpire's parent, which, you don't expect. But if any of them are listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, Midwest League umpires, not great. They have a lot of improvement to work on. Just going to put that nicely. So I think there are a lot of times where Travis is taking a pitch and he's like, that's not a strike. And the Midwest League umpire is like, well, it's a strike for me, even though it's not really a strike. So there's some of that going on too as well. But he's just fine. I think he'll be fine. The second base is kind of work in progress from him. He's not like great. Like if you're expecting Andre Jimenez or even Jason Kipnis level defense right now, I don't know. It's decidedly very average and occasionally I'm gonna say off-putting, but it's a weird aesthetic. That's the best way I can put it. It's a weird aesthetic. He's made some really nice plays. He's shown some range. The throwing motion's a little weird. He's athletic. That's the one part of his game there definitely is some room for an improvement on for sure. But I feel pretty good about that for Travis. Other Lake County stuff. So hey, I didn't see Jacob Cozart live, but I know he made his debut last homestand before all the rain hit. He had a hit in his first at bat, nothing else after that, but that's whatever. That was cool to see. They moved Cooper Engel up, who definitely deserved it, and he's hit the ground running in Akron in 3 games so far. No surprise there. Very high on Cooper Engel. I'd like to see more defense from Cooper Engel, especially the arm. Hopefully that's an offseason thing he tackles and gets better at. But I really like the overall package for Cooper Engel. And then I'm excited to see more of Jacob Cozart. Going to be a lot of fun in Lake County. Most of the other guys have been in Lynchburg so far. I mean, you've got Caden Favors has pitched a couple of innings out there. That's been fun. We've seen Garrett Howe. Ryan Cesnarini the other day had 3 hits, 2 were doubles. It's basically like a great debut in a day, which is great. So that was super cool to see. Trying to see who else has made their debut so far. There's been a couple of pitchers down there. I keep mixing up, unfortunately, the Xavier and Isaac Martinez's, which one was a draft pick, which one wasn't. But both of them are at, Isaac Martinez is at high A, and Isaac is the 18th round pick. Xavier Martinez is the draft pick. So Isaac made his debut, 8th rounder. That was good to see. Let's see who else has made their debuts down there besides Bennett Thompson's down there. I don't know if Bennett Thompson hasn't played yet. I'm not sure. Sean Hepner has made a debut. Donovan Zask. I watched a little bit of his debut. Pretty interesting stuff. I think he's an exciting kid. Probably the best relief arm they drafted, I want to say, in that class. Should be interesting to keep an eye on. Out there, Cam Schulke has made his debut as well. I didn't get a chance to really look at Cam Schulke, but I've heard good things about him. He spent a lot of time in the Cape Cod League. Again, friend of Locked On Guardians, Jeff Ponts, had a lot to say about him. Check on that as well. That's pretty much most of the debuts at this point. I'm looking at the rest of the draft stuff. I think Matson's there. Logan McGuire hasn't been sent out. Jacob Remley's not getting sent out. None of the high school kids are being sent out. It's Bazzana, Cozart, Thompson, Howe, Cesnarini, Favors, Hepner, and Martinez. That's essentially it. And Schulke. So not a ton. Not a surprise. None of the high school kids are going to make their debut this year. I don't think any of us are surprised by that. But what a high school class, really. I mean, everyone's excited about Braylon Dowdy. I would not be surprised if we see Dowdy in Lynchburg next season. They did have Alex Clemmy get out there pretty early before he got traded. I don't think I did a podcast after the trade deadline, so maybe we should address that too. Even though I did most of that on Locked On Guardians. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dowdy Lynchburg next year. And then I think Mobley and Oki and Sullivan to follow in Lynchburg next year. Maybe not right away. I think Dowdy is definitely going to be ready off the bat to go to Lynchburg. And it wouldn't even shock me if next year he is in Lake County. Oki, I don't really know. See, the thing with Dowdy is he is a California prep kid, so he's had a lot more exposure and a lot more time to develop. Whereas Oki's a Midwest kid. Cameron Sullivan's a Midwest kid. He's from Indiana. Mobley's a Florida kid. So he's got more exposure too. And I think he is a very mature kid too, from what I've heard. I think there's some reworking to be done with his delivery, though. It's very odd. The timing is weird. The inverted arm is kind of weird. So I wonder if it might take him longer because they're going to work on some changes with him. Maybe they'll do that in instructs and he'll be fine. He'll be ready. But I mean, I think April, May, we should be talking about Dowdy at Lynchburg. We should be talking about Okie and Mobley and Sullivan not long after. And again, I wouldn't be stunned if Dowdy pushes his way to Lake County next year. There shouldn't be anything in front of him to do that. I mean, just looking at Lynchburg's pitching rotation right now, it's awful. The pitching rotation in Lynchburg is not good. Like Humphreys has had moments this year. He should go to Lake County next year. Hayden Favors should be a starter. But I think, all the guys that are in Lynchburg right now are there. And they haven't shown a ton, and they're young, so maybe that's not fair. But they haven't shown a ton yet, and I think it shouldn't be hard for them to get there. And then all the Lake County guys, I mean, DeLucia is going to move up. Tugboat should move up before the end of the year to Akron, I would assume. I think he's ready for it. Hopefully Rourke Maltrude's healthy. He came off his last start shaking his arm, so don't love that. Spivey will move up. Gomez and Richardson are probably at Lake County next year, so plenty of room for that to happen. I like this draft class a lot in terms of what the Guardians' approach was. I'm not necessarily saying the players themselves, because high school pitching is so risky. It's so risky. And that's where a lot of their money went, was those four high school pitchers they took. It's a risky demographic. But that was the best area of talent that the 2024 draft had to offer. The Guardians had the most money to spend of anybody in the draft, and it made no sense for them to spend the money on college bats that just weren't there, that would have been a reach. High school bats that just were not good. Those would have been a reach too. I know everyone's saying, get bats. You can't overdraft. You can't force things. You can't, just because you quote unquote need something. There's no drafting for need in Major League Baseball. The best area of talent in the 2024 draft class were the early college bats, like the top 10, which the Guardians were lucky also to get Cozart where they did, because he had first round buzz coming into the year. The bat's a little lighter than you'd like for Cozart just because of some swing and miss, but there's power there. And there's the ability to take a walk too, which is good. Just not first round talent as we thought coming into the year, but still very good. Not to mention the defense will carry, hopefully, even though he's a big dude. But the Guardians spent the money they had on high school pitching because that was the best the class had to offer. So they won out and they spent it to the strength of the class. And yeah, it means a bigger risk, but it's better than overspending or not spending or reaching on talent that wasn't as good. You're taking a lot of, high ceiling, high risk players that way. But, if Dowdy and Okie out of the four end up being major leaguers, big win, because let's be honest, the Guardians have not developed high school pitching very well. You've got Henches, who's now on the IL again. And then you've got Tristan McKenzie, who's in AAA. So right now the Guardians have no high school pitching on their major league roster that was any good. They've done a very bad job with that demographic. And maybe that's not them. Maybe that's just how things go. That's the success rate, because they've done well with college pitching. But unfortunately for this class, high school pitching was where the strength was. That was where the most high-end talent existed. Not just talent in general, but the most high-end talent. And because the Guardians had so much money to spend, it didn't make any sense to spend it on lesser talent, on lower or high floor guys, but low rewards, because the money just didn't make sense for those types of players. The money made sense for high school pitching, and they'll have to do their best to develop some of these guys. They got some interesting college pitching along the way, though. I think Caden Favors is interesting. When Aiden Major gets healthy, I hope things turn around for him. Dylan DeLucia looks good. He came off TJ, so maybe Major will be just as good. He had power stuff in college. I think Logan McGuire is super interesting. I think Rafe Schlesinger is a reliever, but he's an interesting one. Scholke and Walty and Zask are all interesting arms. So they've got themselves quite interesting class here at the very least. And it's, again, a lot of high risk, high reward. But you got Bazzana, who should be a good one. Let's talk about some college pitchers that they have taken that are doing good. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw the videos I put up of Austin Peterson from Sunday. Man, he is looking very interesting right now. Specifically, the pitch he threw on Sunday was like an high 80s sinker, two seam. I don't know what it was. I think it's a two seam or a sinker, whatever. Um, it was a nasty, nasty pitch, and he got some chases on it that were very ugly. I've never seen him throw it before. I won't say it's new, but I've never seen him throw it before. But he's got that. He's got a slider that plays off it the other way. He spots his fastball. There's a big curveball that comes in I like from him. Been a while since I've seen his changeup, but I really like the pitch mix from Peterson. He throws it hard enough. He's got extension where that 90-93 plays up, so that helps. Just throws a ton of strikes. I think he'll run into some hard contact because of it. But I think he has the stuff in the control or stuff in the command where I think he's going to be a good major league starter. I think as soon as next season, I'm really excited for him. And then Parker Messick. Parker Messick has really somehow taken a step forward. I shouldn't say somehow because it's not like it's unbelievable, but he was, pretty good at high A, right? And he went to double A, and it's like he got better. I think it's because he should have been at double A for, he's made 10 starts at double A now. He probably should have made 15 starts by now at double A. That's probably when he was ready. He's walking guys less. He's striking more guys out, which great. When you strike more guys out and you walk less, good things happen. It's even better when you're doing it when you're jumping a level. He's suppressing BABIP. His BABIP was a little bit high in high A, and it's probably a little unsustainably low in double A. But you know what? When you miss more bats and you walk less guys, you make that work. I think he is going to be an option for the Guardians next year as well. I like the pitch mix there. Also, it's very deceptive fastball thanks to the arm angle and control, and everything's about angles now. That's what pitching really is at this point. Is it's all about angles, how your pitches are coming in, what they're doing off the angles, making it hard for the hitters to see out of the hand. Pitching is all about angles now, and it's stuff. And I don't know if Parker necessarily has quote unquote big end stuff. Like, the fastball is probably average based on velocity, but it works because of his control and the deception. He's got a good slider. He's got a good changeup. He's got enough command. And again, the deception, it all works. And that's a really solid mid-rotation guy. And then Ryan Webb, I think I have to go back and look at what I said about Ryan Webb on Sunday, but he had just a ton of swing and misses in his start on Sunday. He didn't necessarily miss a lot of bats. And the other weird thing was, okay, so he had 16 whiffs in AAA in his, I think it's his third or second AAA start, and a slider, 7 on the changeup, which I've really liked the changeup for a while now. I thought the curveball was really good, but his slider was working good. And he was only 88 to 90 with the fastball, which is down for him. I've seen him in the past with 94. He's been more like 90, 92, and topping out 94. So 88, 90, I'm a little concerned about that, but it could be late in the year for him, so we'll see. But he didn't strike out a lot of guys, but he actually got a lot of whiffs. So I'm still on Webb for next year. I just want to see more AAA. I'm glad we're getting the data. But I definitely want to see more from him as well. The Andrew Walters thing, I don't know. It's hard to tell if the Guardians are going to call him up or not. I think they should. Sam Hentges is probably lost for the year. You're sifting through options in the bullpen. Nick Sandlin had a better weekend in Milwaukee. You're not getting rid of Barlow. As much as people want to get rid of Barlow, he's not going anywhere. You got Morgan and you got Avila. The nice thing about Morgan is the changeup. So Morgan can get lefties out because of the changeup, which sort of gives you an option against left-handers. But if he has to face a right-hander, you're really in trouble. I think it's better for them to get a look at Walters sooner than later, just because you want to see if he's ready to help you down the stretch and in the playoffs. But I don't know. He's certainly turned things around. I think he's had like 8 straight scoreless appearances in a row. He had like a couple of hiccups in AAA, but I think he's more than ready. As far as Manzardo and Valera, we'll talk more about this on Locked On Guardians, but we talked some of it on Monday on Locked On Guardians, but the Cal Manzardo thing just makes absolutely no sense to me why he's in AAA. The Guardians need a better left-handed option off the bench or against right-handers in the lineup. His OPS against lefties is 823 this year. And it's a short sample size, so I can't sit here and say, like, oh, he's going to hit lefties. It's great, because that's such a small sample that we don't know if that's true or not. But small sample or not, that's encouraging because he has struggled against lefties in the past. So the fact that he's actually doing well against them suggests that there's some level of improvement there, even if that level is, it's not completely a fluke, right? Like if he doesn't hit lefties at the major league level, I think we can say he's improved against them, even if maybe it's not going to be something that he's great at. But he's made strides, is what I'm saying. Doesn't guarantee anything, but I think it's safe to say that the improvement means he has made strides. It just depends on how much, how well it'll stick. But I think Manzardo should be in Cleveland. It makes no sense to me. I think the Valera thing is a little harder because Noel's got to play every day. Brennan's hitting, and he's a center field option. You're playing Lane Thomas. Where does Valera fit? Where? I don't know. Like, unfortunately, you're sticking with David Fry through his elbow issues. You could send someone down to bring up Manzardo, and then you'd have 2 first basemen and a DH / a guy who could maybe play first base occasionally in Fry. So there's room on the roster for that. But you've got Freeman, who's really still in the outfield. You've got Thomas. You got Brennan. You got Noel. I guess one of those guys could go down for Valera, but who? Are you sending Freeman down? You're not sending Noel or Brennan down? So it's either Freeman or Schneemann, and it's probably not both, right? So you got to maybe make a decision here. I thought Cleveland would trade George Valera over the winter. They didn't, and now it looks as if they may not have room to get him a look in 2024, which means he goes into 2025 without an option left and no major league experience, which is not a place you want to be. Which I'm going to say again, I know I said it last offseason, but if he doesn't make his debut in September this year, even if he does, I'm still going to go into this assumption that George Valera is being traded in the winter. Feels very Will Benson-esque to me, is what I would say. Very Will Benson. And the thing that stinks about that is at one time, George Valera was your top prospect. Will Benson never got that high. But if they do trade Will Benson in the offseason, you're definitely trading for pennies on the dollar because at one time this guy was your top prospect, and now he might be traded in the offseason for, Justin Boyd or Steven Hajar. Who knows? Real quickly, I'll get to Angel Hanau. I think he has been the best all-around prospect I've seen in the system this year in terms of position players, the defense, the speed, the contact, the pop, the approach of the plate. It's been as good as I think I've seen. Ralphie Velasquez, I haven't had a chance to see at Lake County yet. I did have one day. It was one game, but that's exciting that he was there, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. Quickly at Lynchburg as well, Jason Chourio. So here's the thing. DeLauter goes to AAA, right? Is there a chance that someone from AAA goes to the majors? I sure hope so, because whether it's Valera, whether it's Manzardo, the Guardians need to send someone to AAA from that group to help them against right-handed pitching, and that would make room for DeLauter. So there should be someone going to AA to take DeLauter's at bats. And if I'm looking at the roster right now, the AA roster's got Halpin, Lampy, Guy Lipscomb, and Alexi Planez. You've got Khalil Watson, who's playing in the outfield. So you've got 5 outfielders, essentially. They could bring Tyrese Turner off the developmental list, make Watson more of an outfielder, and you've shored that up. So it doesn't necessarily guarantee that anyone's moving, but if you did want to replace somebody, Jorge Burgos and Jake Fox both probably shouldn't be in Lake County. Fox hasn't played great this year, but he's been in Lake County for almost 2 years now, and maybe you want to move him up. And then Jorge Burgos has been pretty good, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if he's a prospect, but he hits the ball really freaking hard, and he has some power. He's in his second year at high A, so maybe he goes to AA if they decide to make a move. I mean, again, you could take Khalil Watson, keep him in the outfield more often. Plus, you've got CJ Kafis, who plays left field. You make Turner an infielder, or he's on the developmental list. You bring him off the developmental list, and then you've got 5 or 6 outfielders right there. So maybe you don't need to make a move. But if you do, I think Fox or Burgos makes sense to AA, and that could pave the way for Jason Chourio to go to high A, which I think should happen. The only question about that is I don't know if there's anybody from the draft class that would go there, because they've already got Cesarini. There's no other outfielders. So the question is, could they backfill Jason Chourio's roster spot in low A? There's nobody. I mean, Luis Merejo, I'm going to talk about in a second. He's been playing some outfield, so maybe work him to the outfield more. Durango is actually on the injured list, not the developmental list, so I don't know there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Churio should be in Lake County before the end of the year, before the playoffs, just for that reason. We'll see how soon that happens, though. But that's some of the ripple effects of the DeLauter promotion. And then Luis Merejo. Luis Merejo might go into the offseason for me as a top 20 prospect. I like the swing. I like the size. I like the frame. He does swing and miss some, but it's not alarming. He does show a good amount of zone awareness for what you have in low A. I mean, it's not great. And then, Jeff Ponts told us on Lockdown Guardians, the 90th percentile exit velocities are like in the 110 range, 109. They're just fantastic. They were great last year. They're great again this year. And if you don't know, 90th percentile exit velocity is like what a lot of teams use to evaluate guys' strength and power, because it's the most reliable exit velocity. So think of what you see on Savant where it says max exit velocity. So like you see your Judges and your Stantons and Noels who hit like 110 or 116, whatever. That's great. It's the high end. But the 90th percentile is like what they do most often at the high end of the scale. What are their most consistent high end velocities? In 90th percentile, what he does most of the time is like 109. That's fantastic. That's really good. And for a guy who doesn't strike out a lot, has shown the ability to walk based on what pitching he's seeing at this level. That's fantastic. I don't know where he goes defensively. I haven't seen enough on video to know where he ends up defensively, but the bat seems a lot of good. I think we're heading towards some level of Yandy Diaz, Junior Caminero prospect status here, the beginnings of that level. So I think for me in the offseason, he is going to be in the top 20 range, if not top 30 at the least. It's a good system right now. We'll talk more about the system on Lockdown Guardians on Tuesday, but a lot of fun, at least Merejo. And Wellman Francisco, I don't want to forget him. That's a profile that scares me a little bit just because it reminds me a lot of the Rocchio and those other types, the Jose Tenas, that everyone's like, the hit tool's the carrying tool, and it's fringe average power, but he's going to get to it because he hits. And that works with Juan Brito. Like Juan Brito, I think it's working, but you're hoping for like Brito or Steven Kwan. And it's like, you also have the outcomes where it happens with Rocchio, where it's a lot of contact, but not good contact. And there's just no impact. And right now it's good for Francisco. There's not a lot of power. So I'm a little bearish on Francisco. Is that the right term? Bear, bull? I don't know the markets, to be honest with you, but I'm a little bit less high on Francisco than the rest. I just need to see more of it. When you're talking about bad first prospects in the history of the Guardians doing this the last several years. But he's hit so well so far in Lynchburg. So that's a great thing. All right. We're going to get out of here on this note. I'm going to play you guys the interview I did with Matt Tugboat Wilkinson about a month ago in Lake County. Really, again, awesome kid. Thanks for taking the time to do it. It's going to be a little loud. You're going to hear a lot of fans in the background screaming for autographs on this interview, just forewarning. So if you have your headphones or car or whatever cranked up high, it might come in a little hot because there are a lot of screaming kids wanting Tugboat's autograph because he is a sensation. We also talked about him on Lockdown Guardians with Jeff Ponts, who saw him, and we think Tugboat's definitely a major leaguer. Depends on the role and the impact. I mean, the fastball is one of the most unique shapes as far as, again, approach, angle. Everything's about angles, and it's unique. It's deceptive. He throws it, and he does it for strikes. He knows how to command it. That's going to help him throwing 87, 89. Maybe more velocity comes. Maybe it doesn't. I think he's got a legit change in slider. Very sweepy slider. I just don't know what role he serves. We'll see what happens, but I think he's a major leaguer. But I think the role is still kind of up in the air because of the velocity. I also think we're going to say, well, velocity doesn't matter. Velocity definitely matters. I think there's a minimum threshold to where you have to get to, and I think he's below it right now. But I think the rest of the uniqueness of his profile means that it can play at the current velocity, but it's going to depend on the overall impact of that role. How good can he be at the major league level? I think he has the mentality for sure. I think he sounds like a major leaguer in terms of confidence and humbleness. He just gets it. And that's why I think he's great with the fans, the kids in Lake County. Just seems like a fantastically adjusted kid, and that's going to help him as he moves up. So I will play that interview for you now as we get out of here on this month's, I don't know, Guardians of the Future. Thank you for listening. Leave a review somewhere, share with a friend, share on social media somewhere, wherever you're listening. Let me know where you're listening from, whether it's, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, subscription, whatever. Let me know, leave a review, share with a friend. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the newsletter if you're not already, all that good stuff. Here is Tugboat from Lake County last month. Thank you guys. Tonight, you've had a couple of great starts now since you've been at Lake County. Feet are kind of under you. What have you kind of noticed difference-wise between the last level and this level of how your stuff's playing?
It's definitely got to be more consistent in the stretch side. I felt like when I was in low, I could get away with a little more mistakes, but here I can't get away with mistakes. So just learning how to pitch and getting better every day.
What has been the biggest difference, too, for you in pro ball versus college? Like, what have you changed about maybe your offerings or your routines, things like that from college to now?
Well, everyone's good. Professional baseball. Everyone's got a plan. Everyone's got a plan against you specifically. So, being able to execute my plan to try and get the hitters out the best I can, and I've done that. I did that pretty well.
How have you just kind of handled all the attention this year? Obviously, you had that big game in Lynchburg. You had a good year overall, but obviously that got you on a lot of people's minds. People have seen you now. How have you kind of handled all that this year?
It's new to me, but at the end of the day, it's just people talking about on the phone. They don't. Whatever they say doesn't really matter to me, so I appreciate it, but I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And it doesn't matter what people say about me.
Coming from, a small college in Canada, you pitched on the Cape. Where did you get first noticed by Cleveland or any pro teams? Was it college? Did you notice them? Or did you see more in the Cape?
College, but then the Cape was kind of like, okay, this guy can probably pitch. There's a lot of the question was, since I was at a junior college, would I be able to prove myself to throw on this? I think I have this year, so just trying to get better each and every day.
What was the Cape experience like for you? You said you couldn't have questions if you'd be able to do or not, and obviously you pitched really well. So what was that experience like for you?
It was awesome. I was over there for 2 weeks. It was a short time, but it was really fun. Something if any college baseball player gets asked to go or invited to play, I would definitely recommend going. It's good exposure. It's a fun thing.
Obviously, I know you probably get this question a million times because you're from Canada. Did you play any hockey growing up?
No, I didn't.
No?
Probably the only Canadian who never played hockey.
What was the draw to baseball for you?
Just my brother and dad played growing up, and then watching my brother when I was young, I always wanted to do it. So it's kind of how it happened.
You've always been pretty comfortable with competition and big stage. You obviously were really good in the Little League World Series. What do you think has prepared you for all that? How do you handle that so well?
I don't really care what people think about me. I'm gonna go out there and do what I want to do, and go out there and compete. At the end of the day, they can talk all they want, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna go out there and do what I want to do, and let's get people out.
Who's been your biggest influence? You mentioned your dad and your brother in baseball. Who's been your biggest influence?
Yeah, those guys. Both those guys. My junior college head coach, Anthony Gillis, their influence on me. I can't thank all the guys.
Did you watch a lot of baseball growing up? Were you a baseball fan, or did you just like to play?
I watched a lot. I'm from the same hometown as James Paxton, so growing up, I'd watch him whenever he was pitching for the Mariners. I'd always watch him growing up. Other than that, yeah, I've always watched baseball.
And then, what do you do to get away from baseball? How do you like to just kind of get up? Golf?
Yeah,
How good are you?
I'm middle of the pack, but I just like golfing. Get my mind off baseball as much as I can. So, whenever we have the off day, we'll definitely have some competitiveness from the team.
There's good golf courses around here. I'm sure you guys are finding out. There's plenty in Ohio. Any superstitions? I feel like pitchers are usually more superstitious than position players. No? None?
I'm trying. Superstitions are excuses.
What else do you like to do? Are you a video game player or anything else? Things like that?
Not really.
What's your current warm-up song? What are you listening to?
Drake right now, but I'm probably going to change it. I don't know. I'm more of a country guy now, so we'll see what happens.
Whenever you make your big league debut, who is the hitter you would like to face, or maybe you would like to face the least?
I guess Shohei. I don't know. But that's a tough question. Anyone, really.
Yeah, just make it. All right, Matt, good start tonight. You've had a couple of